Can you tell us just a little bit about yourself, what you do, how you help people?
So, yeah, I started coaching, I want to say 5 years ago. I started working with just women, doing a lot of somatic work, which was going very well. But then I really had the urge to start working with couples. So I certified with relational life therapy run by Terry Real. And it's absolutely the best couples coaching, couples therapy program out there. So for anyone wanting couples therapy, certainly doesn't have to be with me, but trained in RLT is really the way to go because it goes quickly at the root of the problem. We're not sitting around just having, what's the latest issue that's come up? How did you feel? How did you feel? It's really getting to the nitty-gritty of it and truly understanding how to make things better,
Mm.
like where it counts. So, yeah, so that's what I'm doing now. I'm doing mostly couples work and some women exclusively as well.
I gotcha. And how come or why did you switch to doing couples specifically?
It's a good question, and I've asked myself that as well. I I couldn't not. Like I felt so intrigued by the dynamic, right? And that's where I'm always focused on the dynamic right where people get triggered, like right at that one moment when it just goes and everybody blows up. And if I'm just working with the woman, oh my goodness, do I only have one side of the story? And, same with men, but I don't work with men solo, but it really helps get so much more quickly to the problem so that then we can solve it, right? So it's a lot harder, I'll be honest, working with a couple than working with a woman because when I'm working with a woman, she knows what she wants. She's ready to grow, right? When I'm working with a couple, there's usually one person that's not so sold on it.
Hmm.
So part of my job is to sell them on it a little bit, right? Here's why it might make sense for you.
Yeah, that's a great point. I haven't thought about that as like, how do you sell people on getting ready to grow and make changes?
It depends on the person and the dynamic, honestly, and that's part of the art of it, right? It if, for example, we have, and I'm just gonna generalize, a man who is not too thrilled about why he needs to be in coaching or therapy, right? Because he's happy where he's at, right? I the angle is gonna be, "Hey, you could be happier and you could get what you are missing and what you need. Here are some things," right? It's trying to angle it in a way that helps the individual wherever they w- need it, right? And that's going to be different for everybody, right? So I really have to pay attention to what each person wants and needs
Hmm.
in order to then provide that, and that's the entire goal, right? If I'm working with a couple, is not just like this one person brought you to therapy or coaching, right? And what are they gonna get out of this? It's how are you both going to thrive? And that's my job is to make that happen. I've got to build trust first and foremost with my clients, right? Nobody's gonna wanna change or gonna be convinced that they need to change their ways that are ultimately hurting their marriage if they don't trust me,
Hmm.
right? So I'm
Interesting.
I'm yeah, I'm oftentimes spending time building trust first.
Mhm.
So then I have that leverage.
So, um, in the therapy sessions, what are, I guess, sorry, one second. Let me think about a word this. What do you see are the usual dynamics that people fall into that are maybe, harmful? Yeah.
First, I just wanna say I'm not a therapist.
Oh,
I just wanna make that clear. I'm not licensed or anything like that. I'm a coach. I do have a PhD in behavioral neuroscience, but I'm not a licensed therapist. So I just want to put that out there in case anybody's like, no, no.
Yeah.
So what are the main pitfalls?
Mm-hmm.
Was that your question?
Yeah.
There's really one, and everybody does it. They feel hurt, they feel afraid, right? Or sad. It's really some type of pain. And instead of expressing that openly, cleanly, they protect themselves first and then say the thing. At best. At worst, they just say nothing and they bury it and it becomes resentment.
Mm.
So at best, they are expressing not the hurt, not the pain, not the sadness, or they think they're expressing that, but they're really expressing some contempt, some bitterness, some anger, certainly. And anger is just a protection for all those uncomfortable feelings like pain, sadness, and hurt. And your partner doesn't want to hear that, right? They want to feel your pain. They want to understand how they hurt you. They don't want to hear how they are wrong. And most of us lump all that together when we express ourselves. They are not the same at all. At all, at all, at all. And that is, I would say, the foundation of my work, right? If there could be one solid foundation, it's that. How do we learn to express ourselves, how we're feeling, right? How we feel hurt by what you did in a way that our partner can actually absorb and take in and therefore be there with you. And it's a very energetic process. This is all going on subconsciously. We are picking up on these things from each other, and we almost don't realize it. And that's why I think it's so important because this is happening subconsciously, whether you like it or not, whether you realize it or not. So we need to slow down and really pay attention to what's actually happening beneath
Why
the surface.
why don't people why do people struggle to want to hear how they're hurting their partner? I guess like why is there emotional blocks that get set up there?
Because we don't want to feel pain. It's really, that's it. We don't want to feel hurt.
Do you feel like it could ever be like a lack of love or a lack of care for the other person?
Are you asking, um, could you ask your question again?
Yeah. So let's say my partner is in pain and they're trying to express, hey, I don't like this. And then
Mhm.
me as a person who they're expressing that to, um, I guess why would I have a problem with them expressing that?
To be fair, it's pretty rare that your partner or a partner expresses the pain cleanly without attachments to either you being wrong or urgency to fix. Those are the two biggies that you would feel kind of that pull, right? So, said another way, if the pain, the hurt is expressed very cleanly, it's very likely that the vast majority of us would feel pulled towards. The majority of time, it's not expressed cleanly. It's attachment to outcome or it's contempt such that you're actually repelled. So it's not the hurt or the pain that you're actually repelled by. It's what it's attached to.
Okay. It, and to make sure I'm understanding that right, so it's more, it's less like that I'm expressing that I need a change or a help or something, and it's how I'm saying it. It's like what I'm attaching that message to.
So how you're saying it is sort of showing how you are feeling right deep down. So yes, your expression. is kind of like the vehicle for how you actually feel. So if you're pretty pissed, uh, it's gonna show, in your voice and your body language and your tone, and your partner is gonna be like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, hey, like, you don't understand, like, first calm down, like, I did this because X, Y, and Z," and they're gonna start to try to get themselves off the hook, and then the other person's gonna get even more upset because you're not listening, "No, you're not hearing me," and the other person's like, "You're angry, like, I it's very difficult to listen," and then they'll so it's a whole thing, nobody's getting heard, it starts escalating, and then it's a fight. Like, there's a big difference between, like, "Why did you do that?" Like, "You always do that. It's so painful." Like, right? And whew, that it hurts. It just hurts when you, you know, talk to me like that. Just stated. No need for it to change in this moment, right? It's a different type of communication, and that transmission matters. Some people don't wanna hear that, right? But it's the truth. That's where agency and accountability and maturity comes from.
Mm, that I can imagine that's hard for people who really want to see a change in their relationship, like, right away. Maybe they're feeling a lot of resentment or pain themselves, and they wanna see it right away, and then they are learning that the answer may be to try to let go of seeing an answer right away.
Yes, sir.
What do we do about that? What do we do with ourselves there?
Great question. This is where somatic work can be very, very helpful. So I slow everybody down. Like, let's slow this down. Um,
What's somatic work?
Somatic work is getting into the body and feeling and being in tune with what the sensations are. That's how I work anyway. We're slowing everything down. Like, we dilate out a moment, a given trigger. We slow it down so much that it's not automatically sensation, thought, emotion, because that it happens like that, right? In a split second, you're actually picking up on sensation first. That's where a trigger is. You're feeling some tingling, in your stomach, or your stomach drops, or your chest feels tight, or your whole body feels tight, right? That's the first thing. You then interpret that a certain kind of way. There's an interpretation going on. "Oh, I'm in danger. Oh, they don't love me. I'm never gonna get what I need. He's doing this again. This is," and it's just kind of catastrophizing. Then emotions come in, anger, frustration, right? All those. So we slow that down so that we can begin to recognize that just because you're having some sensation in terms of like the response does not necessarily mean what you are telling yourself it means.
Mm,
And so we just kind of we slow it down and put some space, build some capacity to be able to feel what's going on in the body and not jump to conclusions, right? Anytime we're feeling strong sensation in the body, it's historical. This is from when you were like 3, 13, right? Something around there, depending on your life. It's not current, but we tell ourselves it's current. And so we feed the loop, and that does a lot of damage because the intensity associated with those triggers that are showing up in the body as your physiology should not be attached to your partner. It's not theirs. They're just showing it up. They're scratching at the wound a little bit, but that wound is not theirs. They didn't make it. We tell ourselves that they did. That's the problem. And so we slow it way down such that we can build some capacity and agency in each person to be able to kind of create a new narrative.
mm. I really love that. idea of like we have those past wounds, but we subconsciously or accidentally project that they are the cause of the wound because I feel the pain now after they did the thing.
Yep.
But it's like they did not cause that wound.
Mm.
They just help you remember that you have
Yep.
a wound there.
Yes.
Interesting. That's so interesting because I feel like a lot of us try to pick partners in a way where they're going to help us with those specific wounds. And they're supposed to be the person that protects that wound. It's soft there, so they are the ones that supposed to protect me,
Yeah.
you know? So
Exactly.
how do we try to get out of that mindset?
Well, it's one part teaching, right? And explaining this, like, hey, this is what's going on, like it or not. And it's one part this inner work, this deep down subconscious rewiring, which is really what it is, right? We've got a superhighway telling us that just because we don't feel good, we don't like this feeling, that our partner is the problem and the cause and also the fix. Is so fast. So we have to start building new little pathways, right? And use and intentionally choose them. That's the hardest part. You've got to make a new choice. I say that a lot. Nothing's going to change in your marriage if you're not at that fork in the road and you don't make one small new choice. Like, I don't even care what it is, but don't take the bait of that old highway, right? Because you're just going to keep reinforcing it. And so we just create new patterns, right? And this is how our nervous system works ultimately. And then the neurons fire together, wire together, right? Become stronger. And then your superhighway starts to get some potholes and disrepair because you're just not choosing it.
Mm. What's your favorite way to slow down and pick a new choice?
First, to understand that one is available. And we do that by slowing down, like really slowing down in the session. Like, I have my clients close their eyes, feel what's going on in the body without reacting. Like, can you let this sensation be there? Sometimes it's incredibly strong. Can you let it be there without making it wrong, without trying to get rid of it in this moment, right? Sometimes I'll put a timer. Like, can you do this for 1 minute? Because it's very intense for some folks and they're not used to letting themselves feel that. That's why they explode or that's why they run away and shut down, right? They're not used to sitting with that discomfort long enough to be able to make a new choice. Because depending on the person and the reaction, it, it's basically telling them what to do, right? Like, if I don't know what yours is, I have a good handful of them. Depending on the specific situation, I tend to wanna be right. I like to be right. And something in me, right, my body is, like, probably telling me, like, "Hey, now's my moment, right? I'm just gonna, like, fire this away." I've gotta slow down and realize that there's something in me that's trying to push me to be right. Because it's gonna give me something. I think it's gonna give me something that I want in this moment, right? It'll scratch an itch for, I don't know, a couple minutes. But the reality is it's self-sabotage. And that's what I try to teach people is anytime you have a knee-jerk reaction to a trigger, I promise you it's an act of self-sabotage. You are pushing away the very thing you want every time.
That's powerful. Hmm. And how do we discover the better choice to make? So I
Mm.
let's say I know the moment when I'm getting triggered, and I know how I usually respond. And even with if I have all the practice to be like, okay, calm down and slow down. How do I know what to do? Like what to do differently?
That's a good question. So in session, I generally will have my clients find that. I don't like to give too much like leading, right? I want them to find within themselves that new thing. And so that's again where we slow down so much. I'll have them feel the sensations of the triggers first. And okay, generally it starts to recede depending on the person, depending on how serious the trigger is within a couple of minutes. And it starts to calm down, not because you're doing your knee jerk reaction, but because you're actually giving time and space for the physiological response to be there. Because it's a very old part of you. This is like little 3-year-old Everest in there or 8-year-old, right? Just wanting to be heard. It's like a little kid.
Mm.
Like, I am scared. It's that scared little part of you again coming out like, no. And so it's up to you to actually let it be scared. Like, it's okay. You are allowed now to be scared. And so you let it. You let the fear be without your knee jerk reaction, which is to get rid of it. And so by doing that knee jerk reaction, whether it's running away or yelling or whatever, you're telling your own little self you're not allowed to feel that way. And your body doesn't like that very much. And so it's going to come back and it's going to come back louder. And so learning to have this response to our physiological responses is first. That's the first step. Like, you're allowed to be here. I know it's uncomfortable. I know you're scared. We don't have to do anything to fix it right in this moment. I'm listening. That's step one. Once that kind of calms down, then there's an opening. There's space. There's capacity that wasn't there before to actually make a new choice. Almost everybody I work with knows what to do.
Mm.
Once they've learned that this fear or this pain doesn't have to choose, then the loving part of them actually can come out. Sometimes it takes a couple sessions, sometimes it's within one. That I'll prompt them, like, what's something else that might be needed right now? Like, what else could you do in this moment that might actually be beneficial for the relationship? And in that moment, they have more clarity.
I recently was reading from this guy. He was a monk for a while, and he was getting panic attacks during
Mhm.
meditation. Um, and it was because these feelings would come up from his past, is why it makes me think of this. And
Mhm.
he would try to do everything he could. In meditation, you're supposed to have a focus. He'd try to push that away and just focus on his focus. Say it's the breathing or the wall in front
Yeah,
of you or whatever that is.
yeah,
And that tension of shoving those feelings away, and he eventually, was very afraid of them eventually, and you meditate for hours and hours, actually was giving him panic attacks.
wow.
And he actually got kicked out of the monastery and wanted to come back. And they said, they'll give you one more shot. And he decided to meditate on that exact pain
Mm, beautiful.
that he was trying to avoid. And that was his focus. And of course, stressed, anxious, he said, but as soon as he focused on that pain, like with his whole soul, that's the point.
Yeah.
Um, the pressure has room and the pressure collapses. And he says, trying to get as focused and close to that pain is what was able to help him like just let go and feel better about it and not have so much pain. I think that's a really interesting back and forth.
If everybody did that, we would live in a very different world.
How would that
Really.
world be different?
We wouldn't be fighting because the fighting and the anger and the resentment is from triggers primarily. There's righteous anger, but I'm not discussing that. It's really the triggers. Everybody is, you're making those bad choices because you're triggered. You're And if you just give yourself a moment, right? And not try to So sometimes in like conventional therapy, there'll be tools that are given, like box breathing is one that's coming to mind, or looking around when somebody's kind of in a panic, looking around, and locating 5 objects, placing your feet on the floor. And that's great. Like there's a time and a place if you're really, really reaching a limit for that. But I tend to want to go inward, right? We don't want to go outside of our body to calm down what's going on inside of our body because we need agency. Your body needs to understand that you are in control. You are in charge. You are in the driver's seat. If you're like, "Oh, this is too much. Let me find some tool to fix this because this is too much," right? That's subtly telling yourself you're too much and I need to find a solution. That's not, I mean, there's a time and a place, like I'm saying, I'm not trying to throw all that out, but it for really, really deep healing, we've got to turn inward and be with the pain. Bonus points if you really wanna understand why it's there. That helps most people. It helps them move forward because they're like, "Oh, that makes so much sense why I get that knot in my stomach when he blah, blah, blah. I didn't know is because my mom whatever. I got it now. Now I see that it really is little me in there because I have them do, exercises sometimes depending on the need and the client that I have them visualize. Like, at first I have them feel, say it's their stomach, right? And they feel like an intense, like, ball or knot in their stomach. And I ask them, "Can you imagine your little self?" And they do, and it coincides with the sensation, like, whatever they're imagining, in their mind's eye lines up with whatever it is their little self went through. So they can actually, in session, attach the sensation to the events or event, from childhood. It helps them, conceptualize the whole thing.
Hmm. Um, there's I feel I feel like in my own life, there's yeah, I don't know if it's right to separate this, but I've got a head and a heart. The head wants to go one way, and the heart feels something else sometimes.
Well, my business is head versus heart coaching. So,
Yeah. Well, there it is. And so I'm wondering, um, what do we do about bringing those 2 in alignment? Do we have to bring them in alignment? How do we manage the head versus how we manage the heart? Can we kinda talk on that?
yeah, that's funny. I thought of that business name pretty early on because I just did, right? And it as the more I work in this field, the more I'm like, yeah, like this is it. This is really the heart of it, no pun intended. Because our in my experience, what's happening is our heart always knows what to do, but we can't hear it because our heads are real busy owning the show. Our heads are so busy trying to solve the problem of your feelings that there's not a whole lot of space to actually get into the heart and make a choice from there. The head is a very busy and capable place, and it will try to solve the problem of your emotions all day long for the rest of your life. And a lot of times people are just spinning. They're just, I don't know what to do. Like, and they're just like rehearsing the arguments, trying to imagine what to say. But if I do this, you are in your head. You will never solve your problem there. You think you will, but you won't. So we look at it like, what's going on? Where do you feel the activity right now? Oh, my head, like it feels like a, 10-pound weight on my shoulders. Okay. And we just slow that all down, right? So you can actually feel and notice that you've got a lot going on in your head, relatively speaking, right? And so we just look at it, we allow it to be there. We understand why it's there. It's just trying to protect you. And then that leaves room to drop down into the body. Let me just add this. One of the biggest, what's the word? Benefits to the work I do is helping somebody feel, not just think about, but feel the difference between being in their head and being in their body, which leaves room for their heart. It is a very different experience, like in the moment. And the more somebody can actually feel that they don't have to always be in their head trying to solve the problems. If there is another option, then they start to buy in. Like, oh my gosh, this feels so much better. Oh, I feel so much more peace right now. I can't believe how much time I was like spending in my head trying to solve an unsolvable problem. So much more peace and freedom.
Hmm. Do you do you have an exercise that anyone listening at home could do to to try and practice that?
Okay. So what I usually do is I have you recall something that happened recently that felt particularly triggering. So, whether it was your last argument or the last time you felt hurt. So, I give you a moment,
Okay, got it.
think
That was it.
about it. Okay, it's right there. It's usually not hard. And then I'll have you close your eyes. So, go ahead, close your eyes, thinking about the argument or the moment, and notice what you're feeling in your body. And let me know when you've got it.
Be honest, it's hard to notice what I'm feeling, but I'm gonna try.
Okay, well, so then this will be good then. Let's do it. So slow. This is not uncommon. Any little sensation matters, right? Any little flicker, heaviness in your chest, tightness in your chest,
Yeah,
butterflies in your stomach.
maybe a pulling kind of like this way, like
Perfect.
in my chest, that not a comfortable pulling.
Got it. Yep, perfect. And so we spend a couple of moments there, really letting that be there, not making it wrong, not trying to do something about it, not trying to fix that uncomfortable pulling. Just for one moment or two, being curious. Oh, okay, this happens every time I get triggered in this way.
Hmm.
And just giving some time and space for that to be there without automatically assuming that it means you have to do something about it. And so, what I'll tell my clients is when you are triggered, just stop for a moment, go find somewhere, go lay down in bed, whatever, and let yourself feel the intensity of the trigger first. That is number one step. And then the rest becomes clearer once that is handled. And it's baby steps. You don't have to solve it all at once. You can just be 1% more with that intensity than you were last time, and that's progress.
This might be my head getting in the way, but how do we balance wanting new outcomes and different things and solving and bettering ourselves with letting go of needing to solve?
Well, first, we don't want to get rid of your head because it's very useful, right? That's how you're thinking of this question. We just have to give it boundaries around when it's allowed to work for you and when it's not, right? So parts of ourselves don't actually get access to our wife or our husband. right? That's part of this too, is knowing your head is very good at doing its job. So good that it's actually trying to take over. Your head has served you very, very well in a lot of ways. And so we're not trying to demonize it or get rid of it. We're just trying to give it like a job that doesn't involve getting between you and your wife because going it's not equipped for that. It's just not, it's going to make a mess. So how do we balance that? Uh, We've got so is the question, how do we ultimately get what we need in the relationship in a way.
Yeah.
This brings me back to what I was saying before. We've got to unhook it from immediate attachment to outcome and um that's the word. Criticizing, contempt, bitterness, right? When when it's attached to those two things, like I was saying earlier, we're pretty much it's nail on the coffin. We're not going to get what we need because our partner is going to be pushed away. So we've got to first know what we need, which is not always easy for everybody to know, right? So if you don't know what you need, we've got to figure that out. Once you do, you really have to learn how to express that to your partner in a way that they can hear. I will say that all day long. It is probably the number one skill everybody needs. I will say that most people, like I said, think that they are expressing themselves in a way their partner can hear, and they're not. That's why we hear comments about tone. Your your tone is coming off a certain way, or why is my partner still ignoring me, not listening to me, not hearing me, not giving me what I need when I'm telling them straight what I need. Well, let's find out. Let's look at that. And in session, it's clear. It's clear. I can tell you right now why they're not listening. Do I? Not always, right? Like I have to play my cards right, but I could tell you it's because you actually can't stand them.
Hmm. Hmm. That's got to be hard to find when we don't always have some outside third person to be there
Yeah.
during triggering moments.
Mm.
Um, do you have any good ways we could try to find those ourselves in the ways we're not communicating well?
If you're tolerating poor behavior over and over again, don't expect it to change, right? You might actually have to dig down deep and find what you need to do, whether it's like whatever it is, some type of, if this keeps happening, I can no longer do this, right? And what does that look like for each person? There's a lot of codependency out there. There's a lot of unwillingness to rock the boat. A, a lot of fear when it comes to standing up for what you need because you're afraid you won't get it. You're afraid of retaliation. You're afraid of getting shut down. It's critical you start to advocate for yourself and not in a way that's hear me now, right? We're not talking about that. It's but what do you need to feel safe in your own body? And we will slow that down. Let's look at that. What's the first step you could take? Because what's happening now is you're enabling, as hard as that is to hear. If you aren't actually standing up for what you need and knowing what you need and advocating for it in a loving, firm way, you're part of the problem. You're part of that cycle, and that's not to come down on people like that, but that's what I do is I look at patterns first and foremost. Like, what is the pattern here? The pattern is you're not speaking up.
Let's say that I'm someone that I feel like in a relationship's really not going well for me, feels unhealthy. I'm feeling a lot of pain, and I am afraid to talk, afraid to take a step. What what would you say to them?
It's less what I say to them because they won't hear it, right? It's getting into the body, letting them feel the discomfort associated with being in that moment where they want to say something but can't, right? Again, I'll say, like, imagine expressing this to your partner. What comes up? Instantaneous. They're, flooding and overwhelm. It's too scary, way too scary. And so we sit with it. What is your body trying to tell you? It's trying to tell me to to. I'm imagining a lot of clients feel a lot of weight when they let themselves feel that. It's heavy, very heavy. The body's trying to slow you down so you don't get yourself into trouble, quote, which is in the face of an angry partner. That's trouble. That was trouble when you were little, right? And so we sit with that enough to realize, oh, this part of you is just trying to help, but it's not helping anymore. It's hurting you. You are isolated. You are alone. You're fearful, right? You're in so much pain every day from not being heard and not validating yourself, right?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I imagine that there's healthy boundaries around what I can ask of my partner and what I should take responsibility on myself for. And do you have any good like gauges or ways to know what's a team thing and what's a me thing?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it probably has a pretty layered answer. My first answer is if you need it right now, it's probably a you thing. The second part of that is the more you take on and take ownership over the me things, the more is available for the we things because your partner is perceiving you now as safe, as having agency, autonomous, not needing something from her in order to be okay. And so then she or he will have the bandwidth and capacity and willingness and desire to step towards you and make more of your stuff, we things. It's lovely, really. That's where you want to get to. But you got to be safe first, and safe. The definition of emotionally safe is not having the urgent expectation that your partner fix your discomfort. You can handle it.
Wow. I love that definition. I've never heard that before. Huh. Do you have any other definitions that I should know? That was awesome.
I can give you the B of that is well, that would kind of open a whole can of worms into like repair and what listening is, what being understood is. That's the other definition of emotional safety is having the capacity to hear what your partner is feeling without making it about you. So it's the same thing in a different context. Does that make sense? Like if your partner brings something to you, can you actually be there with them and hear their feelings without trying to make them wrong in some way? And here's the subtle way we do it. Oh, but you didn't. Oh, but it was because, excuse number 1, 2, and 3, right? Trying to think of an example. I'm terrible with on the spot examples. It's basic. I wasn't able to stop at the store like I said I would because I was busy talking to my boss, you understand, right? Super important meeting today. And after he was talking to me, that's why I didn't get to stop at the store. You and she's like, that doesn't help me feel better, right? You're just trying in giving that example, it's context, 100% reasonable context. Great, great, great. You're also trying to take away her feelings. This is the thing that most people miss. This is another biggie. In that very moment, so this is a great kind of take home message for listeners. In that moment, she doesn't care why you were late. She just wants you to hear that she's sad or that she's hurt. So in that moment, you've got to take all that context that matters very much, right? And put it on the shelf. And you leave it there until she's done with her feelings. And you're saying, okay, I can understand why you'd feel hurt. I know. Yes, I said I would. And therefore you feel hurt now and you feel overwhelmed because now you have to figure something else out for dinner. Got it. I totally get that. Once she's calmed down, then maybe or later that evening, you can share with her the context. Like, hey, yeah, it, my boss was talking to me, right? And I didn't want to, right? So that was why. Okay, yeah, I get that. Then she's got more room to hear the context, which to her in the moment sound like excuses because you're trying to minimize her feelings by providing them.
Hmm.
Most people miss that.
Hmm. So when someone comes to you with emotion, you can't come back with logic.
Mhm.
It's also emotion. Just feel that. And then at another point when we can be logic to logic, we do that. Is that kind of what you're...
Similar. Yeah, I would say careful there, right? Because if you bring in emotion, that can also be a negative emotion, which can try to offset her emotions. So, what I teach is one person gets to feel and the other person witnesses. The other person sees, observes, is curious. And then you can switch, but you can't have two feelers at the same time. So, it's different than what you're saying. If you've got two people having a feeling about something, it's not gonna go well. Logic, sure, they could hang together all day long and be best buddies, but two feelings together is often very tricky. And I would argue that if you're trying to bring up the context, it's actually motivated by discomfort with her feelings. And so you're trying to get them to calm down by bringing up the reasons. If she only understood that it was a really important meeting and my boss needed to talk to me, then she wouldn't feel this way. Sure, try it. It doesn't work, right? We all know that. She just is going to get more upset.
Hmm. Do you have any good words, like, as a husband, you know, that I can maybe say to myself to, like, help know, okay, I need to be doing this, or I need to remember this when we get into those tough moments. If that makes sense.
Yeah, is the dynamic she has a feeling?
Um, with my wife specifically, it's kind of funny where I'm more of a feely and she's more of a thinky.
Logic.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there's definitely moments where I know um she'll get very she will get overstressed before I do at a lot
Okay.
of points. Like, a mess around the house puts me about midway to stress, and that's almost the top for her.
Okay.
And that's like a very common thing is I'm consistently less stressed by a stressor than she is, and so in that moment, that's where I'm thinking in my brain of how to respond well to when she's feeling very stressed, and
Okay.
I'm not yet.
Okay.
Um,
And are you open to telling me what usually happens or what happens when it doesn't go well?
sure. Let me think of a good time. I feel like the worst of times, the worst times I can think of it. So we did a move recently, and we had to be out of the house in like 6 more hours, and she was feeling a lot, and it's like, I know you're feeling a lot. It's like, we just have to get this done. Like, I have got to move out. And so that was probably like the worst way I probably could have responded. And um, I almost didn't even acknowledge emotions. I'm like, okay, fine. And I am backing up right now, and we will do this in 6 hours. I don't know. So
Okay.
that's how I can imagine the worst way it would go.
How, how did she handle that?
Wasn't very good. Didn't talk to me for The rest of that time moving.
Oh, hours and hours then.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I would like everyone to know we have worked on it, we've talked about it, we have practiced recovering from that moment, um, and we still love each other. So,
we're just using this as an example.
yeah.
Yeah? Okay. So what she needed, right? So you got emotional, actually. You think it's logic, but it was actually emotion. It was frustration, irritation at being slowed down, at being encumbered by her emotion that you didn't want to deal with. And there's something deeper there, but we could leave it. So what you needed to do was check your emotions at the door, right? A little bit. Realize you're actually emotional.
Hmm.
And men tend to not want to put their negative emotions like anger and frustration in the category of emotion because they just don't. Um, because we've got anger and frustration and irritation over here on its own, and then all the other emotions. That's common for men because men are more socialized to just be able to express that one. And then all the others are just unfelt and they come out sideways in anger and frustration. But so you would have needed to check yourself there and realize that you were also stressed and emotional to then be able to have the capacity to hear her and be with her in that moment. I see how stressed this move is making you. Like I can totally understand how you would feel overwhelmed right now. What are the main things that feel like the most stressful for you right now? Ah, da, 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 da. Totally get that. Yeah, I see that. Yeah, no, I understand, right? It's just being with. Is there anything I can do right in this moment? Yeah, you can do this. All right, let me see if I can do that. If not, right, you just kind of work it out. Just be there for her. It'll take 5 minutes.
Mm.
Um, on her end, right? She's got her stuff too, right? If she would talk to you for the rest of the move, right? There's her side. But you asked me what you could have done, I believe.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and yeah. So everyone knows, that's not usually how things go, but I
Yep.
wanted to try and provide.
Listen, if that's your worst case scenario, you're doing pretty good.
I'm sure it could be much worse. Yeah,
Much, much worse.
yeah.
Like beyond. And I just want to take a moment to say I am humbled by the readiness and the willingness for some couples who've just been through it so terribly to show up and to love each other again. It is a beautiful thing. The capacity to forgive and to move towards after being hurt so badly is awe-inspiring. And it's profound in the couples that have the most damaging past, right? The couples that are coming from such hardship, such trauma, then to go ahead and traumatize their spouse, and then to stop and to even make one small new choice is like, it's a big deal. It's a bigger deal. And that's why we feel it, right? That's why we feel it when somebody does that compared to somebody who's got it good and grew up, with a white picket fence and they get along great. It's like, good, great, good for you. But the grit, right? And the depth it takes for people who've been through it to reconcile and to deal with those demons and still show up and love and be vulnerable and open, caring is incredible. And I feel privileged to witness that. And again, it's not all the couples, right? There's huge variation in terms of who I work with.
Is for maybe someone who's, again, trying to find the courage or worried about the mistakes they've made, can you just let us know, like, is there hope? Like, what is it on the other side that's worth going through the change and pain for?
To feel loved for the first time in their life. In their life. 60-year-old man for the first time feeling the pain, allowing the pain of his childhood to be there, to see himself and to not take it out on everybody around him, to in that moment to break, right? The facade breaks. So it's only then and there can he actually let love in.
Mm.
And that's it. It's the feeling of feeling connected to somebody for the first time. Some of these people, right? Never have they felt that before in their entire life. It's heartbreaking.
Mm. Can So I hope this doesn't come across any offense, but I can just imagine someone at home thinking, "Can people really change?" You know?
1,000,000%. That's what my job is. That's what I do. If you're sitting in front of me and you want X, Y, or Z, and by the way, that's the first question I ask any couple or any one person. What do you want? What are your goals? What are you not getting? Like, let's talk about this. I need to figure out what's stopping you from getting that. That is my job. What one thing, maybe two, okay. What's first? And we're gonna look there. What's the block, right? And most people are in their own way. Oftentimes, I will say it's usually more one person first than the other, and that is one thing that differentiates me from the traditional therapy model. Is I'm not afraid to take sides. I will start with one person. I'll get buy-in. That's part of my job, right? Is to, again, that trust. I We're looking at a pattern, and we need to focus on what's gonna break that pattern first. And it's honestly, it's sometimes it's so much one person, and oftentimes it's a little bit. We still got to start there regardless.
Are there any specific, um, differences that you've seen, like, very common, uh, between men and women that come up in these hard situations in your coaching?
Mm. Well, there's a lot of differences between men and women. Whew. Um, and they become clearer and clearer the more I coach. But
Feel free
one
to talk on that because I feel like we live in a place where the media is trying to tell us there's very few differences, and
uh,
masculinity and femininity is that's not a thing, you know?
yeah,
That's a terrible repressive,
it's a construct.
vocabulary, and so I think talking on that is not a
Yeah,
bad thing to do.
yeah, okay. Well, to directly answer the question, I could just bring up just an example from last week. I had a couple. Interestingly, I will say they do buy into the men and women are not are pretty much the same construct. So it's been fascinating to work with them because, that's this is my response in many sessions internally. Because they exhibit such classic masculine and feminine dynamics, and they just don't see it. It's beautiful, actually. It's like, "Oh, God's design right there," right? And they don't see it. But what we just sort of unlocked is that she just like I was saying before, she just wants to be felt. She just wants to express her feelings. She doesn't care about what you do, how you're gonna fix it. She just wants him to say, "Oh, I can understand why you'd feel like that," basically. And he does not need that at all, ever. What he wants is action. He wants her to do the thing. Think of something fun they could do because that's his love language, or it's all action based. He wants her to physically show up with her body, right, in some form or fashion. Action. Do. Women are like, just be with me and my feelings. It's less action oriented. And that makes sense. Men are generally action oriented. Like what they do in the world matters. In fact, matters a lot, which brings us into a major, major issue, right? With masculinity and femininity is men take a lot of pride, way more pride than women want to give them credit for how she feels in the relationship and how he's doing. How is he doing? Action. How's he showing up? Is he effective? Is he doing his quote job, right? Action. What are men doing in this, right? So when she's like arms crossed, you didn't show up for me in this way that I needed, right? He perceives that as I'm failing. I'm failing at the number one most important thing in my life. And most men shut down. It's too much after a while, right? Like this just repeated failure. She just thinks she's trying to get her needs met over here in the best way possible because she's not aware of how deeply she's hurting him with all these like micro cuts, it's just like without building him up on the other side to make him feel like or know he's not failing. In fact, he's not. It's not a failure. This.
To have conversations, feeling safer to have them,
Hmm.
helps. And I'm curious, it kind of sounded like you were saying a great way to help the husband feel safer so they're available to have these conversations is to find ways to help them know they're doing their job
Yeah.
and they're doing their job well. And what are some ways the husband can help the wife feel safer as well? Like what are the best ways to help our partners
Mm.
feel safe?
She's expressing herself in this way because she doesn't feel loved in that moment. So what can you do to make her feel like, no, you do love her? Like that's the question for men. What can you do in this moment to make her feel like you actually do love her? Because she's telling herself that you don't. And for women, right, it's how can you express yourself to make him feel like he's not failing you?
Hmm.
And yeah, I'll leave it there.
Fascinating. What keeps coming up in my brain is this interesting concept of a good way to tell that you don't feel emotionally secure is from trying to solve every emotion that comes up.
Well, yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Can you talk a little more on that? It's fascinating.
There's so many ways that we try to solve the problem of our emotions. What are the big ones, right? The big ones are yelling, withdrawing. Those are the big two. Can you think of any others that people might do, which we call them in RLT losing strategies?
Losing strategies.
Now, when you do this to try to solve the problem of your emotions, it's a losing strategy. So you might want to think about not doing it. It's not going to work. If you're trying to solve the problem of your emotions, you're going in the wrong direction, right? You're barking up the wrong tree. They don't want to be solved. They just want to be heard and allowed.
Can you share maybe a common, I don't know, hypothetical uh, bad example and then a hypothetical good example of um, dealing with the conflict? And we can go back to the husband didn't stop at the store like he was asked.
Okay. Hypothetical. So from whose standpoint? Both? You want to do like a
Yeah, so like if I'm in a relationship, I could be like, okay, I should avoid this kind of thing and I should aim for this kind of thing.
right. So, but that's going to be from the man's perspective and the woman's perspective because each person has 100% agency over how they show up, right? So if I'm talking to a man, I'm saying Like, "Hey, man, this is actually all on you. Like, you 100% need to change this thing." And to the woman, "Hey, like, this is 100% on you to change this one thing," right? We're not sitting around waiting for the other person to show up differently. Uh, you're just gonna be, resentful roommates and bitter for the rest of your lives if you do that. So that's why when you ask me that, I'm not gonna automatically assume it's the man who needs to do differently there, right? We're gonna look at both, and we're gonna look at how both of you can actually show up differently in order to get what you need, right? That's the thing that most people miss. Like, you stop trying to die on your hill, right? You want him to show up for you. He's not. What could you do differently to actually eh, get what you need from him for you, right? Not so he could get what he needs, a nicer, warmer life, so you can get your needs met. Like, you're the one that's in the self-help and the growth mindset, right? Let's maximize on that. He's not there yet. By and large, that is the way I see it. Like, women are looking at these things first. Not that that's better. I just it's not always better, because there's this subtle or not so subtle self-righteousness that comes along with that in fact makes things worse potentially. So I digress. Um yeah, so we can look at both there, right? For the best case, worst case scenario for the man and for the woman in that example. Okay. He comes home. He was supposed to stop at the store, right, for dinner. He did not. Whether or not he forgot, intentionally didn't, is kind of irrelevant. Unfortunately, that might be uncomfortable for some people, but in that moment, it's irrelevant because context is irrelevant in that moment. So worst case scenario is she's expresses herself and says, "Why didn't you go to the store?" And
No,
he
we're not gonna
immediately,
have nachos for dinner.
yeah, now we're not, now what are we gonna do? That was the plan, like, and the worst thing he could do is get emotional. And by emotional, I mean defensive. Defensiveness is emotional. You are being run by your discomfort. And so he can say, like, what are you talking about? Like, I just didn't have a chance. I told you, right? I told you I had this big meeting. Maybe you weren't listening. Maybe you were busy doing X, Y, and Z. Da, 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 right? Immediate argument. It'll go south so fast, right? That's worst case, is him getting actually angry. Middle of the road is, I had that meeting. Oh yeah, you don't understand. I was with my boss. Right? Just context. Reasonable. Right? Best case is, I can totally understand how frustrated you must be right now. You had this plan. Now we're not gonna be able to do that. And you probably feel overwhelmed with what you're gonna do right now. Yes, I don't, now I don't know what to do. And just being with that. Tell me more. Tell me more is a huge thing to remember. Tell me more. I'm curious. What is that? Where does that leave you now? What are your options for dinner? I don't know. And then she's going to start to calm down. Oh, it's not that bad. I guess I can just make that pasta dish that I make sometimes. That's okay. Okay. Does that sound okay for the man side?
Yeah, I think that's great. I love that idea of like tell me more. Um, yeah, and yeah, what would the women's side worst case?
Or- Before I go into that, I just want to emphasize that what I just described is incredibly difficult for somebody whose knee-jerk reaction is defensiveness and anger. Uh, it is a very hard ask, right? To have them do what I just suggested. They've got to slow themselves down, right? What we were talking about earlier. Like, they've got to actually feel that discomfort, potentially why it's there in the first place. Who was trying to push you around when you were 8 years old? Who was trying to make you feel like you were a piece of whatever because you didn't do what you were supposed to do? And then a part of you comes online and is like, absolutely not. Is anybody ever gonna push me around again till the day I die? Like, right? And That's still happening 30 years later. You're not gonna tell me what to do. I'm not gonna be made to feel like that piece of whatever again. And so recognizing that, right? You're not actually fighting with your wife. Your wife is not trying to push you around. You feel like she is. It's your mother, father who is doing the dirty work, right? And so helping understand that one, your that anger and pushback is just trying to protect you from the pain and misery really of feeling like you don't exist and you don't matter as a little kid, because that is intolerable for a little child. Feeling uncared for, unloved, and like they don't matter is not. Little children don't have the capacity to handle that, nor should they, right? It's their parents' job. And but their parents failed, right? And so a part of them had to come online and protect their nervous system from that intensity that they could not tolerate, right? And so that whatever move that their system comes up with is the move that they keep doing forever unless they check it at the door. And that move is always, and this is like a key point, we respect it because that move preserved your integrity and your dignity as a kid. And good for it. Good for you for figuring out how to stand up in some way to protect yourself. And unfortunately, it's shooting yourselves in the foot right now, right? So, hey, right? So it's like when this feeling comes on that you just want to yell at your wife because you got to put up a boundary. That part, it's just that part of you pushing back against your dad or your mom, like they don't get to do that to me again. Like, thank you. I appreciate what you did for me and what you're trying to do for me to keep me from feeling despair. And you're kind of messing things up with my wife a little bit right now. So if you could just take a seat.
Huh.
That's the move. So I say all that because it is not easy and I understand it.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah. I can imagine, like, especially if you do that, if that's how you've been reacting for 20, 30 years, like, that I can see being very hard to even get to a space willing to talk about changing that.
mhm,
And, 'cause our brains love to be like they love to be like, "I acted this way, and an outcome, I survived. So therefore, I'm going to reinforce acting that way again because I
mhm,
did that thing. Look, I survived, maybe even felt
mhm,
better than the last way I reacted. So
mhm.
I'm gonna choose that least that is my new path of least resistance." Um, so yeah.
It's actually more than that. It's I thrived because for a lot of men in particular, it's actually what helped them build their very successful business, for example, right? It's that grit, that determination, that fight that actually helped them push through adversity in their 20s to get where they needed to be. And so the last thing I ever want to do is to make that part of them wrong. They actually still need that part of them in their day job, for example. I see this a lot. Like we're not trying to get rid of this conviction. I have a couple I'm working with now and he's a police officer. He absolutely needs to have conviction on right or wrong when he's out on the streets. And he needs to stand with 2 feet solid on the ground around that conviction. That does that also translate to, at home to his wife? Not so well, right? So that's where boundaries come in. That part of him, great, during the day at work, not so much needs a boundary around being in a relationship with his wife. And so we learn how to have relationships with parts of us.
Mhm. We yeah. And so for the women's side,
Mhm.
can we go into that?
Yeah. So for her, she's got her own triggers, right? So he can come home and walk in the door and she's like, Like, I cannot believe you didn't go to the store. Like, you know how important it is. Like, I can't believe you did this again. Like, just wall of irritation. And that's going to increase the likelihood that he's just not going to be there for her in that moment, right? Is it right that he's not? No, we're not talking about that. It just increases the likelihood you're not going to get what you need in that moment, right? Period. What will increase the likelihood? It's going to be, like, just like, oh, I know you didn't have time to go to the store. I'm just a little overwhelmed right now because I don't know what to make for dinner. You just sad. What's the emotion underneath the anger? I ask that so much.
Mm.
How are you really feeling? It's not angry. The anger is protecting the deeper emotion. Sad. It's sad, it's fear, or it's loneliness. It's one of those three. And if you learn to have a better relationship with the angry protector part of you coming in to try to make you feel better and make you safe, you could put that aside for a moment, actually feel what you're really feeling underneath. That's what you share with your partner. I just feel sad. I just feel sad. I was really hoping that you would bring, the taco shells and the salsa so we can have taco night. And then it's more likely that the husband will be like, I'm sorry.
Mm. Interesting. That's fascinating. What's fascinating to me is in both of the ways, like, it's just, I just wanna share my perspective as a guy when you said that, the best way for me to respond would be to just be like, "Wow, that's really hard. Tell me more." Like,
Mhm.
as a guy, the idea of saying that, in my head, I'm thinking, that sounds almost mean to say, and, like like, I don't I how do I put this in good words? Like, dumb, like, I'm making.
You're a man. That's
Yeah.
'cause you're a man. You don't want that.
Like, yeah, very natural. Like, if, like, another guy said that to me, if I was like, "Hey, I have this problem," and another guy said that to me, I'd be like, "He is mean.
Ew.
If he
Yeah, get out of here.
doesn't care about me, he's being really weird, and I hate that." And so
So
that
perfect.
that was so, like, stark for me, and so I don't know if there's any wives out there, just know your man might respond a similar way if you say, "Hey, this is how I want you to respond." They'll be like,
So
would I say that? That sounds evil." Like that's the wrong response, essentially, is how that brings up in me.
because you don't need it.
Yeah, and then, hmm, so what are the responses that men need, and what are the responses that women need?
Men need, I understand. And if he doesn't understand, get curious. And it's not you understand. This is really important. It's not that you would understand for yourself. It's that you understand how she would feel that way based on who she is. If you can understand that distinction and make that distinction in the moment, it's really everything. You know your wife's triggers, you know her wounds, you know what hurts her, you know what overwhelms her, right? So it would make good sense that she would be pretty upset in this moment, given the circumstances. Doesn't matter to you, right? So don't try to get upset with her, right? That it'll never work. And don't try to solve it. Like, oh, okay. I know you. This is you. I got you. And women, watch your tone. Oh. And don't just watch your tone. Understand why your tone is the way it is. Why are you coming off harsh? How do you really feel right now about him? Does how you really feel in this moment about him, is it going to translate to him that you don't like him right now and that he's failing you? And if so, do some deep diving. because you very likely are telling yourself something to make that a reality in that moment. Guarantee, like, women are very good at that, telling ourselves things that aren't necessarily true, or building, a mountain out of a molehill because it feels good and it feels powerful, and it makes them the bad guy. And stop. Do it in reverse and pick the good things and make those a mountain.
Mm, that's interesting. So men need to hear essentially there is a problem, but it doesn't mean you are a failure.
Yeah,
And
hard to do
y-
sometimes.
yeah. And then, which is that in itself could be like a whole 45 minute, like that's tough. And then,
Mm,
um, and the women need to hear not necessarily that I completely understand everything, but I can see how you are feeling, why you would feel that way.
yeah, that's huge. Men, get that right, and things will change in your marriage. I can understand why you would feel that way, but not, again, not from a place of self-protection, but, like, I genuinely can understand why you feel upset.
And if not, like ask questions until you can understand kind of thing.
Yes, she will relax over the course of a couple of moments, and then you'll feel what, right? Like, probably like you did a thing, right? You did good.
Yeah. Huh.
It's the antidote.
Um, do you have a really good way to make a man feel successful that he's like in his marriage?
Um, Physical touch is big, 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 big for most men. Not sexual necessarily, but wives' hands on man's body, right? Shoulders, arms, affectionate squeeze, rubbing the back or shoulders. That is probably 50% of it, honestly, for a lot of men. They're really lacking that. And the women are holding out. I say holding out. It's probably just a subset of women. Um, some men need to do a little work before the wife feels comfortable doing that. Uh, and
And so then the woman and for helping the woman feel loved.
listening, yeah. What is it's women are very emotional, and if they feel alone in their emotions, it's going to be a long, hard road. And yeah, making space to just be with her there is huge.
Well, Ariel, thank you so much for your time. This has been such a wonderful conversation. Um, I think last question, it's the toughest one. But if you were gonna say in 1 to 2 sentences, everything you knew was erased from the earth,
Mm,
and you could only give the earth 1 or 2 sentences on how to have a healthy relationship, what would you say?
mm, is one sentence. It
Yep.
and it's like it could be brutal, but it's stop making it about you. It's it's not all about you. The moment you can actually cross that bridge and look at your partner and what your partner needs, the glacier will melt. New bridges will form. Connection will be there.
Mm.
And this is it. We're just all in it for ourselves. That's the biggest problem.
Wow. Ariel, is a how can people find you? Do you have anything you wanna let people know about you, your work, what they can look forward to?
You could find me if you want to email me. It's info@headverseheartcoaching.com. Or on Instagram, you could DM me. My handle is Ariel or at Ariel lower what's it called? Underscore underscore brewer underscore. And that's really it. Yeah. If you're interested in working with me, please just reach out and we can chat about whether or not we'd be a good fit. But listening to all this is pretty much how I work.
Cool. Okay. Thank you.